The Kings captain gets a new deal, and the future of the LA Kings took the ice today. We'll break it all down next on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you are enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast. It's a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 16 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for 30 years. Coming up on today's show, the development camp is underway at El Segundo, and we'll tell you who's there and who are the players to watch. But we begin with big news from the LA Kings and captain Anze Kopitar agreeing on a new 2-year contract extension worth $14 million. Kopitar was to be an unrestricted free agent after this coming season. GM Rob Blake said on the signing, quote, "We're pleased to have reached an agreement that'll keep Anze in Los Angeles as our group takes the next step towards competing for a Stanley Cup. He's the heart and soul of this team as our captain and will continue to play a major role on our club," end quote. Kopitar said on signing the extension, quote, "Los Angeles has become home for me and my family, and I'm excited to extend my career here. I've been with this organization through it all, and I know our group is close to achieving something special. I look forward to helping us reach the next level and achieve the ultimate goal of winning the Stanley Cup again," end quote. Kopitar was a first-round pick of the Kings, 11th overall in 2005 from Slovenia. Next season will be his 18th in the NHL and the 7th as Kings captain. He goes into next season with 1,292 games played, all in LA, 393 career goals with 748 career assists for 1,141 points. In Kings history, Kopitar ranks second in games played. He's just 5 away from passing Dustin Brown for the most games played in Kings history. He is second in assists, 10 away from passing Marcel Dion to become the greatest assist man in Kings history. He is third in points. He's 14 away from passing Luc Robitaille for second on that list, and fourth in goals scored. Kopitar's 12 20-goal seasons are tied for the most in franchise history with Marcel Dion and Luc Robitaille. He'll be looking to break that record this coming season. Now, Kopitar will turn 36 next month, but he is still a very productive player. Last season, he was the team's leading scorer for a franchise record 15th time. He had 74 points, 28 goals, and 46 assists. For some historical perspective, Gordie Howe is the only other player in NHL history to lead the same franchise in points at least 15 times. He did it 17 times. This past season, Kopitar led all Kings forwards in time on ice per game, 20 minutes and 18 seconds. All Kings forwards in power play time on ice, shorthanded time on ice as well, and also led the team in face-off winning percentage. He was second on the team in goals and assists. He had 4 penalty minutes all season, played in all 82 games, and that was why he won the second Lady Byng Trophy of his career. Kopitar's also won the Selke Trophy as the league's top defensive forward twice in 2016 and 2018. The Lady Byng Trophy for twice as well for gentlemanly play, basically high level of play while basically not committing any penalties. He won it in 2016 and again this past year, 2023. Won the Mark Messier Leadership Award in 2020 and was a 5-time All-Star. Kopitar is one of 2 players in league history to win both the Lady Byng and the Selke Trophy multiple times. The other was former Detroit Red Wings Pavel Datsyuk. This season will be the last of his 8-year, $80 million contract that he signed back in 2016. That resulted in a $10 million cap hit per year. The cap hit is going to decrease by $3 million over the last 2 years of the extension that Kopitar signed. It'll run through the 2025-26 season. When the new deal kicks in, he'll go from being the second highest paid player on the team to the fourth highest paid player as far as average value per year. He'll be behind Drew Doughty, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Kevin Fiala. If you're looking at any kind of controversy in Anze Kopitar's career, you have to look pretty hard. But I suppose if you were going to look at something, it would be the fact that he did take over as team captain from Dustin Brown. Of course, that wasn't his decision. I guess he could have refused to have that decision, but I think the friendship between Dustin Brown and Anze Kopitar, I'm guessing they had a conversation, and Brown was willing, I'm sure not happy, but willing to relinquish the C to Anze Kopitar. But that was a management decision. That wasn't like Kopitar lobbied for that to happen, but he did accept the captaincy and took over for Dustin Brown. So I guess if there was anything remotely controversy in the distinguished career of Anze Kopitar, I guess that would be it. But again, I think it's even reaching, to be honest about it. It's been a spotless career for the most part for Anze Kopitar. And I have said on this show, if you have watched and listened for a while, that I believe Anze Kopitar, when it's all said and done, will be, for me, the greatest LA King in franchise history. Now, Wayne Gretzky is the most historically significant and influential as far as the Kings, putting them more on the map, certainly making hockey in non-traditional markets, specifically Southern California, something that could be more successful. But Gretzky's best years were not in LA. They were in Edmonton. He didn't finish his career in LA. He finished it in New York, and he never won a Stanley Cup here. Anze Kopitar is likely going to play his entire career in LA. He will hold most of the key records in franchise history, and he helped the team win their first 2 Stanley Cup titles. Hopefully he'll get another one before it's all said and done. His number 11 will be raised to the rafters at Crypto.com Arena at some point, and if there's any room for any statues outside, he'll get one of those as well. He has been a consummate professional on and off the ice, a great representative for the city of Los Angeles and the Kings organization, and he's going to be a Hockey Hall of Famer when it is all said and done. Now, when this extension expires, it'll remain to be seen how much longer Kopitar would like to play, or will he call it a career when the extension is up. Now, he'll be 38 when the extension is up, but there are plenty of examples of players of his caliber playing into their 40s, including Kings Hall of Famers Luc Robitaille and Rob Blake. If you're looking for a very recent example, Joe Thornton, who has bounced around a bit late, but longtime San Jose Shark. He was the oldest player in the NHL last season at 43. And he's currently looking for a home, not likely to find one, to be honest with you. But again, certainly with today's modern medicine and training and the way players take care of their bodies and the way Anze Kopitar has, knock on wood, been healthy his whole career, it's not unlikely that he could sign on for a couple more years after this extension is over. But let's just worry about him finishing up the next 3 years of his career while he's under contract with the Kings, see where he's at with his career, see what the Kings accomplish over those 3 years, and then we'll see if maybe he wants to play a little bit longer. But regardless, it is, I think, a no-brainer for the LA Kings to sign Anze Kopitar to this extension, which came as a surprise to absolutely no one. Rob Blake had said that Kopitar was going to get re-signed. Kopitar has always said he wants to stay in LA, wants to be a one franchise player. Now we know with what we saw with Jonathan Quick, that's not always necessarily the case. If the player wants it that way, I'm sure Jonathan Quick would have liked it to be that way. But as it stands right now, no reason to think that Anze Kopitar won't finish his career as an LA King. We'll see what the future holds. But again, he is still a very important, very significant player and a productive player for the LA Kings. Still getting the job done. And whether he has more years after that, like I said, it will remain to be seen. As far as the future of Anze Kopitar and the Kings, we do obviously know now the Kings signing Pierre-Luc Dubois, just turning 25 years old. He appears to be the heir apparent for the number one center position on the top line for Anze Kopitar. Not going to be this season, wouldn't expect at all, especially, like I said, with Kopitar still being productive and Pierre-Luc Dubois, coming into a new situation. You would expect him to probably be the second line center, Kopitar to be the first line center. But again, the transition certainly is ready to go at some point in the near future for Anze Kopitar. But for now, he is still the Kings' top line center. And I don't think there's any debate about that, frankly, at this point. So we're, I think, excited for Anze Kopitar. Again, still very productive, a great representative, one of the all-time great Kings, even if you don't agree with me that he's going to be the all-time greatest King ever, still amongst the discussion of all-time greatest LA Kings without any question. Will there be any future Anze Kopitar is on display at El Segundo for the opening of development camp? We're going to talk a little bit about that right here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball with FanDuel Sportsbook and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets. That's up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under or who you think is going to hit the first home run of the game, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There is no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in a bonus bet. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. The NHL regular season is still just over 3 months away, but the offseason part of the LA Kings schedule got started earlier today with the opening of the team's development camp at the Toyota Sports Performance Center in El Segundo. The future of the LA Kings on display now through Monday with 5 sessions each morning. It includes specific on-ice sessions for forwards, defensemen, and then it is capped off each day with a scrimmage. The Kings have 23 drafted prospects and 11 camp invitees, making up a 34-player roster. So who is exactly at the Kings development camp? Well, all 5 of the Kings' recent 2023 draft picks are there. Forwards Cohen Ziemer and Ryan Comrie, defenseman Jakub Dvorak and Matthew Mania, as well as goalie Hampton Solkinski. Ziemer will be rejoining his junior team, the Prince George Cougars in the Western Hockey League, coming up this season. Comrie is headed to the University of New Hampshire to start his college career. Dvorak will continue playing in the Czech League. Mania will return to the Sudbury Wolves in the OHL, and Solinsky will be playing at Northern Michigan University. All 7 Kings draft picks from 2022 also are at development camp. Forwards Jack Hughes, Kenny Connors, Jared Wright, and Caleb Lawrence, as well as defensemen Angus Booth, Otto Saline, and Jack Sparks. Hughes is coming off his sophomore season at Northeastern University, but he has entered the transfer portal. No report on where he's going to play in college next season. But with the Huskies last year, he had 5 goals and 11 assists in 32 games. That was after his sophomore season. Kenny Connors just finished his freshman year at the University of Massachusetts. He had 9 goals and 17 assists for 26 points in 32 games. Angus Booth played 62 games for Shawinigan in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He had 3 goals and 16 assists for 19 points. Otto Saline played in Finland last season for a couple of different teams. In 30 games, he had a total of 4 goals and 8 assists for 12 points. And Jack Sparks played for 2 different teams in the United States Hockey League last season. He had a goal and 7 assists in 53 games. 3 of the 4 draft picks for the Kings from 2021 are also at the development camp. They include forwards Francesco Pellini and Samuel Helenius, as well as defenseman Brant Clark. The one player from the last 3 NHL drafts that won't be there is defenseman Kirill Kirsanov. He's playing professionally in Russia. As far as those players from the 2021 draft, Francesco Pellini is coming off a great season as the captain of the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL. 60 games, he had 41 goals, 49 assists for 90 points. Samuel Helenius played 61 games for the Ontario Reign last year. He had 2 goals and 12 assists for 14 points in his first full pro season. Brant Clark, of course, saw time in the NHL, AHL, and OHL last season. We're going to get more into the season he had coming up and the expectations for him coming into this season. There are also 5 players from the 2020 Kings draft class of the 7 players available that are at the development camp. One of them is not Quentin Byfield, who had been at the last 2 development camps, but apparently the Kings feel like it was not necessary for Byfield to be at the development camp this year. Casper Simon-Seivel, Alex Laferriere, Martin Kromiak, Ben Meehan, E2 Jameson, Juho Markkanen are all there, and they were there last year as well. Casper Simon-Seivel played in his native Finland last season. 49 games, he had 10 goals and 14 assists for 24 points. Alex Laferriere finished up his junior season at Harvard with 21 goals and 21 assists for 42 points in 34 games. He then turned pro. Signed a 3-year entry-level contract with the Kings. He did burn one of those seasons by playing 4 games with the Reign in the Ontario Reign, where he had 1 goal in just 4 games. Martin Chromiak played his first season with the Ontario Reign, played in 55 games in his first pro season, finished with 15 goals and 13 assists for 28 points. He did have some injury issues and some health issues this past year. Ben Meehan finished up his junior year at the University of Massachusetts Lowell. He had 34 games played with 4 goals, 13 assists for 17 points. And A2 Jameson had 14 goals and 18 assists for 32 points, playing 43 games in Finland. There is one player from the 2019 NHL draft that's at the development camp. That's defenseman Braden Doyle. He finished up his sophomore year at Northeastern. He had 1 goal and 7 assists for 8 points in 23 games. And there are 2 players that joined the Kings organization late in the year in trades last year. They are defenseman Cole Krieger and goalie Eric Portillo. Krieger wrapped up his 5 seasons at the Michigan State University, but I get that right. He played 38 games for the Spartans, had 10 goals and 6 assists for 16 points. He then came to LA in a trade from Florida and joined the Ontario Reign for 8 games at the end of last year, had 1 goal and 1 assist. He played, a brief time in the AHL with the Ontario Reign. Eric Portillo wrapped up his junior season at the University of Michigan. He appeared in 38 games for the Wolverines. He went 25-11-2, helped Michigan get to the Frozen Four last year. That is the Final 4 teams in college hockey national semifinals. He signed a 2-year entry-level deal with the Kings worth $874,000 this past April. We will get into more of the biggest name at development camp. That is next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. After you finish up this show, check out Locked On NHL. They'll keep you updated on all things NHL, including the latest free agent signings and news from across the league. That is Locked On NHL on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. Now, of those 34 players at the Kings development camp, only 1 has NHL experience, and only 1 has a good chance of being on the Kings roster opening night and maybe even in the opening night lineup. And that, of course, is defenseman Brandt Clarke. All eyes will be on Clarke as he starts his quest to become a full-time NHL player. Hopefully things will go as well for Clarke as they did last year when he had a strong showing in development camp, followed that up with a good showing at the rookie faceoff tournament in San Jose. He then looked strong in training camp and the preseason, and then saw his first NHL action, playing 9 games for the Kings, finishing with 2 assists. He then had a 5-game conditioning assignment with the Ontario Reign, where he had 1 goal and 1 assist. And before heading back to his junior team, he helped Canada win gold in the World Junior Championship, scoring 8 points in that event. Then it was back to the OHL with his Barrie Colts team, where he scored 23 goals and had 61 points in 31 games. He finished 4th among OHL defensemen in goals and 5th in points, despite playing only half the season. In fact, the 20-year-old finished 5th among defensemen in goals in the 60-team Canadian Hockey League, and his 1.97 points per game was easily the best among all defensemen. And of the 31 games that Clarke played, he failed to record a point in only 4 of them, and he finished the season on a 16-game point streak. I am all in on Brandt Clarke starting the season with the Kings on the right side on their third pairing, assuming everyone goes according to plan. No injury issues, no unforeseen issues with how he's played. I know some might prefer that he start the year in the AHL, get some professional seasoning before jumping full-time into the NHL. And there is certainly a point to be made that Jordan Spence is certainly someone that could fill that spot before Brandt Clarke comes in, and maybe they share time. They're very similar players, offensive defensemen, guys that can run a power play unit. But for me, I'm for getting Brandt Clarke as much experience at the NHL level as possible, and frankly, get him ready with as much NHL experience as they can for the playoffs. The only thing he's lacking is experience at the NHL level. Let's see him playing on that third pairing, and let's get him going on the point on that second power play unit. Let's get him as many reps as possible. I'm sure there'll be somewhat of a learning curve for Brandt Clarke, but again, I think in his brief time with the LA Kings, he's shown that he's a guy who has the ability and the mindset to be able to handle what's being expected of him. Like I said, all he needs is just to get the experience and to learn the speed of the NHL game, the quickness of the NHL game, the decision-making that you have to have at this level going against grown men. There's going to be some growing pains, but at the same time, let's get those reps in early and often, because it's about the playoffs this coming season for the LA Kings. Regular season, you want to do as well as you can. Sure, you want to put yourself in a good position when it comes to playoff time proceeding and all those things. But in the end, it's all about the Kings having a positive result in the playoffs this year. That is something that's going to be stressed. It's going to be something that's going to be talked about. It's going to be something that's going to be expected for the LA Kings. I think Brandt Clarke can be a significant part of the Kings' postseason success this year and provide them with a different element and aspect that they really had offensively on the blue line than they've had in quite some time. So all eyes will be on Brandt Clarke at the development camp, but he's not the only player certainly of interest. I think Francesco Pinelli is a guy that I certainly will want to see how he can perform. Had a dynamic offensive year playing in the OHL as well. So looking to see if he can translate some of those numbers into the pro ranks. Jack Hughes and Alex Laferriere are also a couple of forwards that I think are, somewhat close to being ready for the NHL in their near future. I think on the defense side, obviously Clark, but I think Cole Krieger is an interesting player as well. He's certainly a much older rookie than you would expect, having played 5 years of college hockey. I think the COVID year in there helped that as well to give him an extra year. I think he's got a very, very outside chance of playing on that left side on the third pairing for the LA Kings. But again, he's not as young, as inexperienced as you might think. College hockey is a pretty high level of hockey, in some respects comparable to the AHL as far as the level of play, especially when you play at a place like a Michigan State or a Michigan, those types of schools. So I don't think he'll be there unless there's some sort of injury. I think Tobias Bjornfot's going to get that first shot on the third pairing on the left side, but I think there's a slight chance that maybe if Cole Krieger comes in and shows something, that he could get an opportunity if something presents itself. Certainly in net, I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Eric Portillo. He's going to see a lot of time, I would expect, in the AHL this season, and the Kings are going to take a long look at him to see if, in fact, he's showing signs that maybe, just maybe, he could be the goalie of the future for the LA Kings and kind of a homegrown prospect for them. Certainly he didn't get drafted by the Kings, but coming over from Buffalo after not wanting to sign there and signing with LA. But again, a young player just out of college. And we'll see. There's a lot of good things to like about him. He played very, very well at a major program at the University of Michigan. But again, we'll have to see if he can do it now against professional players. So close eye on Eric Portillo to see if maybe he can be the future in net for the LA Kings. There was one camp invite that I thought was worth mentioning for you Kings fans of a certain age. There's some other players that get invited from different areas that weren't drafted or signed by the Kings. And one of them is Jacob Modry. He was born in El Segundo, and he is the son of former LA King defenseman Yaroslav Modry. So a little bit of a familiar name also at development camp for the LA Kings. As far as the schedule, if you want to head out to the Toyota Sports Performance Center in El Segundo to check out the development camp for yourself, coming up on Friday, the defensive group will take the ice at 9:30 a.m., the forwards at 11 a.m., and then there's a scrimmage at 3 p.m. They'll flip it on Saturday, forwards at 9:30, defense at 11, and then another scrimmage at 3. Sunday, the defensive group takes the ice at 8:45 a.m., 10 a.m. It's the forward group. No scrimmage on that day. And then on the final day of development camp, which is Monday, July the 10th, 9 a.m., they'll have their final scrimmage of the event, and then they'll break and get ready for the rookie camp that comes up after the development camp. But a good chance, if you're available to get in the area, to get out and see some of the future of the LA Kings. And again, Brandt Clarke's out there. He's worth the price of admission for himself. And by the way, there is no price of admission. It's free to the public to go out and check out the Kings development camp there in El Segundo. All right, for you everydayers, you listen and watch every day. Coming up on tomorrow, our Friday show, it is our Kings fan feedback show. Your questions, your comments, not too late to get an email in. If you'd like, lockedoneddie@gmail.com is the address, EDDIE, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. We talked a lot about a lot of things this week. Obviously, the Anze Kopitar extension. If you're interested in commenting on that, is certainly welcome your comments on that. We had a guest this week, Harrison Lee from Locked On Winnipeg Jets, talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Had some interesting comments to say about him. We had free agent signings from the past weekend you can comment on. We also profiled a couple of Kings players this week in Matt Roy and Alex Turcotte in our 4th of July special about the American players for the LA Kings, or anything else that is on your mind involving the Kings. Your comments and your questions are welcome. And again, if you'd like to comment on the YouTube episodes, just post your comments in the section below. We'd love for you to stay interactive with the show by following us on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you as always for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.